so ni mede no oni mo kan no ni mo ye papa yi anti ya de o say ye na ye tiny china vision the chirmo Paul wo or the more my Ghana no ni na to be bema bibia to me konkai anti ehun na no odi nkomo on African security me no na ye to me ehun bi no anti ye papa na ensama ekoba nyina no the new patriotic party NPP omo organizer national organizer friend Nana Boache national organizer friend Nana Boache bidona friend Nana B I a press conference in Sembi Atudra na me hu say nipa bi say MPP mpanifo bi omo mfere omo humbu omo Nana Boache national service nsema be humbom because no ye board chairman de ma national service board scheme no enti ye beko na wo de ye nkwatie nsema Nana Boache or the two dwa press conference na ye ba mo say ka kire na ya ka kire no.
The President's directive to the Chief of Staff instructing heads of government agencies to nullify or to revoke all public service appointments made after December 7th is poorly conceived, illegal, and profoundly damaging to the hardworking Ghanaian. This decision contradicts the core principles of job creation which the ruling party promised through its 24-hour economy. We were here in Ghana, we were told that the 24-hour economy will provide jobs in the morning, some will go in the afternoon, others will go at night. So what happened? Mr. President, in addition to its devastating effect on individuals and families, the directive lacks legal foundation and compromises the integrity of Ghana's public service recruitment processes. Public service recruitment in Ghana is not arbitrary. It follows strict bureaucratic processes with multiple levels of approval. Before hiring a personnel, any agency must obtain financial clearance or board approval from the relevant authorities. In some cases, even from Public Services Commission. You must secure financial clearance from the Ministry of Finance, incorporate new hires into its annual budget planning, and adhere to specific timelines set by the Ministry of Finance, which often spans months or even years. So the processes of recruitment is not just an event. Ladies and gentlemen, it is absurd to suggest that public services could bypass all these public agencies, could bypass all these procedures after December 7th, 2024, and illegally recruit staff. The mere date of appointment does not invalidate the due process that was followed before these individuals were hired.
Enti Nana Boache Nana B or national organizer the new patriotic party na or Kasano. Yembisa say Nana Boache Nana B more can on one kasa wadren huana. Or person say Directive His Excellency John Dramani Mahama Ediman the Chief of Staff Unyam for Chief Julius Debra mo odi two Jano make us say no nyadi or munini edgeman or say His Excellency John Dramani Mahama obilivi wo 24-hour economy no why say ya de oyi bi mu efi ho na yembisa say NPP aso omo nkai omo ho ana mo nkai asema omo ba bedwe mu omo ba ba mu asema owura osafo mafo a no ye senior advisor to the president and Adanko Akufo-Addo omo ye ya na it is a NPP ya to abawi na or say abanfo froba mo lusu a na my 10 term I employing Kofo after December 7th. No person what saying. Dear no person what say. Says ya no a friend is saying demonstration and I say and some more mokeka any money or more ye wa ba ye press conference answer me obeka say hi na ye be yin Kofo edi Ora Mahama ni chief of staff why na catch you na one kasa bi so ye two ade so a wo ko also wo di echije ye yetu ade so wo kwa na wo fa nipa ha ade adwembone ade adwensa na ta sa ade echi we Ghana ni atie ni o abansesa aba yato aba welusu a o say we hand over the man a new government oba no but the one no what shall say how employing kofu what sen kofu egum say che wo bok egu ho ama ban no abra o mine anka say hieska enye say o ma form no omunya Ghana fo omunya Ghana fo but o senche nya abotre e due process nya adwuma bi kra clearance ma bata ho peprinti mo for save for sankofu ewrem nana bi dweno ho na wanka say o party na esi o mu tu o mo pamo wan gba adwuma yesi wo no national organizer no wo bonko press conference o ye die na ewum asema okay die nyansa na ewum mono mo kwa na mahye da afafa nkofo ewrewre mo no na chese adeso na mesu aban no aban ni nya abotre embra entutu ne emaye no mfa nipa no ma rasia hye nkofo ahye yeah directive na baaye no enya de ye bone yenkese omo asebewa saade ye fu omo se omo nye Ghana fo but obi enim se ye tu aban na aban foforo ba wo kwa wo mfa nipa nhyehyem munya abotre na ututu niema ye na aban ba wafa nipa but ya to aberie December 7th on the 8th na mo lose 9th na mo sha se fankofu why why we be ya press conference His Excellency John Dramani Mahama onyo no ano ka say 24-hour economy no obi be ye adwuma na pa ye adwuma wia aye adwuma anadwo wasama woken na nabi mamuye ntieye mo kwa mo afofa mo guess ni wa mo ngofu bi ahyehyehye ma munya abokyere na ban foforo no kwan ode betutu ya afa nkofo uri abeka se ya afa nkofo be yi o madi na wankasa kwan wo fa so edi fa nipa no eye me kaka okay osafo mafo eye 2017 nsama om di tudwa nsama om ka so mo mafo me ye ile om na of makofie and then wo beka se sen MPP pa mwankasa my confused wo hwe mo ne ye ne kwanya why my confused wankasa na bi no wa party for so wa bon kon omuhu national organizer wa bon sin say da wo pese o kasa na wo party for kasa na bi akasa o na bi ya de ana se den nipa ne de ombe kofie no bi a reapply na ma for due process na fa nipa no ene nchese John Dramani Mahama NDC aban chirobia but you were the right process for kwan paso na fa nipa no eja bread dan no yetu afima wo kono na afi na wo ba fa niema bi ahyehyem ana wo ba fa nipa egu asem we wodwe ho a wonti ase we che se MPP aban no Ghana fo hwe ne ye o omo ye nipa bonefo abra yato abakra na yenye handing over emfema His Excellency John Dramani Mahama kra yedum light a mo anana mu ye ncha nso na mo bo ne din ejo Mahama didum sabo na nse mu di akohwisam ne atro ekeka se ye friend say BEC on metre ye jinkwala na exam 550 enye no kore why say mu di trosa why say mo pesa mo ya na mo penti John Mahama black why say mo pesa mo ya na ekase enkoyi enso man mu na masɛ no mo di o man na kwa chi Ghana bra ye brain na ye MPP fuo yo MPP aban na nado danko akufo ado ne Dr. Mahmoud Baumia na una na bi ubeja ka say galamsey akobe na wuntu bi wa wura Kennedy Japan kan o se na bi galamsey utubi ubeye board chairman edema eye national service modi nipa 81,000 over modi go CMC GG salaries edema nkofo na minim se hwehwemu koso na minim se sankofo mo kase omo ye we nyina no ye behu omo to very soon Ghana fo nana bi why board chairman de ama national service we di omo akotena ye panin wo ho eda national service in and over 81,000 ghost names. Hey, what do you want to say? MPP for your man boy for MPP abai. We digane wu. And the way when ya and I just say Bejina as a high, you're any saying, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, the 24-hour economy believing and John Casabimun Kofi. What's some of our quan pass the fan cofuna, Jebecca's Munkofiana. On gas or Pamomo, but Obian Conom reapply name for due processing phobia. Yeah, Ghana for me, dear, may I meet Nicholas, dear. No crowd mechanic say. And I say more sense, yea, and say, my dream is to swing him a man, a woman team baby, and say, MPP are by more, a call more first with the Ghana would, Mamma, a more mumba bemubium. Your moment no position 100 years. Was only the Ghana woo, only the Ghana woo, a briar brain na, a briar brain na, MPP fui, Nanadone, Dr. Mahmoud Baumian and a be your say, a briar brain na, Uncle Finty, na ye bre. She, and near my Diego, Ayabasa. No more buy, no more bushy, no more girlfriends, no more down for 4. Na minim say His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, the second come near and by Wabe. Me say, ye be you moto baako. Ghana ni bia wo hwe me na wutie mi a MPP ni kasa ya Bonigala we menhwe no. Cause onkofo no mo ye wudifo. MPP fo ye wudifo. Ne kwa na me ka che no. Omo ye mamboyfo. Omo mpe man ni yi. Ekwanyo o mafasu ebu o man Ghana no. Omo ndwene Ghana fo ho. Omo ndwene me ne wo a wo hwe me ana wutie me time me fo ho. Omo aye omo hu yi na me His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. Me jinidi me Dr. Dominic Ayenidi. Se ombetumi amamra na ye adwuma. Baby a ye wie sika akwahye. Baby a omfa oye state niema akwahye bia ibetumi agye no baako. Mo wie sika ne kogu baby be ka kire se eyi na nkofo a ye se omunko fie no enye se eba ne saa. Ade sika ne mfentu omuka. Ade sika ne ye mfentu omuka. Adi yenye budget yense se yihuwe na mo pese o chese wage bill no ko itirimo bone adwembone nti na aba no ho nkire no na akwese aba ni nisko de betu yankofo ka na akese ye kai His Excellency John Dramani Mahama will take you over as a president ahen enye 1 month 1 week ane yesimi enso MPP fo ne pese mo yanche John Dramani Mahama ho kire no John Dramani Mahama obre du odwene boni na me se me besi wo eye national service ho ne de minim say His Excellency John Dramani Mahama say omunye investigation en se me be fi ho beba no reke no Ofori atos medical aka the doctors the letter aba bono so ye wanted tie me so ye dey or ye wanted nti baby o wo bia no so de no aka ban se waje bamo se wayiro no so beba enti Ghana for asema na BK de ono ni moka ono anka se ogina ono to hyehye no na very soon the best expose sankofo ni na ama omudin abeto ho na mewo ho bia so abanti MPP for do mo kasa yembo omungu mama yemfo mu serious ozo mo nsema omu kani na no enya ade a sebiwa yebeto yama ye hwe nkra His Excellency John Dramani Mahama stay focused when our appointees mo mama dwene nko nepa ne adwuma pa mo pese mudi ma o man Ghana no ne bibia ntumi nkonka nti ade atene no a ne so esi enda no na bi asem de yembongu no ne bibi papa bia de maye ye nua A+ woko East Central Regional Gomua Central me Gomwani anti Gomua Central member of parliament A+. Ono so ade ensem atudwa efan MPP omo leadership nsensem hu ekwanya MPP for ye omo niema omama niema agiegu moma yenkotie A+ ensem oka edifa MPP omo leadership hu niema agiegu nmbra
the MPP leadership the MPP leadership is not a serious one, and I'm making that very clear to them. They are not serious. They don't know what they're about. I think they have not gotten over the defeat that they encountered not long ago, and so I had to go where I'm wanted, where they're serious about running a country. The day after the election, Atta Forsen called me and indicated that he wanted me to caucus with them. it took a long time for the MPP to approach me through Kennedy Japan. And even when he made the approach, and when I came out and said that he had made an approach, because they are arrogant and they wanted to do it behind the scenes and put in and some deals that they were not truthful about. They came up and said that, oh, they never said that, oh, it's not true, oh, you know what I'm saying. But that's exactly what happened. And so I had to caucus with NDC. They have shown that they're serious. They have shown that they value what I do and who I am. And so
NT A plus Gomwa Central Member of Parliament. Now so no de oko as independent candidate and onono oko no na wetumi enwini na not shim wo hwe NPP leadership a make omo asem ya I say omunwini ye no akwa say His Excellency John Dramani Mahama wini na akon madwene nti Lucy nankasa no aye popu bribri na wo so omu popo sa also wo hwa ono plus ko parliament no owura parliament no wo hwe ma ekwa your friend is saying is NDC side no Dr. Atta Forsen omo approaching ka say plus ya be person oba be ka majority no ho na wo ne yen edi adwuma na o say MPP de omo de fa honorable Kennedy Japan so ya be kai obeka sa asemi MPP fo nso omo oboa onka hwe omo ni nhia omo ne yan mo kai o say ahantan ha ewo MPP mu ahantan Ghana fo ntie niye sa ahantan nti na omo mbu ye na ya yesika omo besom yen omo di yesika nti na yeji omo afi o America no what ase nti MPP ankasa ahantan o say ahantan mafa Kennedy Japan so abeka o plus be kan ho kwan on fa so obeka krom say entesa but also wo hwe NDC amayeku a wo hwe leadership omo parliamentar wo hwe His Excellency John Dramani Mahama wo hwe amayeku no mumpanyimfo kwan a omo fa so tutu omo niam chese NDC aye krado so metumi ebu oman Ghana NDC aye krado so man no ombe ma afanu ntuma pefra NDC aye krado so ombe ma Ghana isini dedem no bi aka se Ghana aye de NDC aye krado so ombe boa moma no etumi afanu ntuma pefra nti we na aye A plus so odi tu dwa me ne wo ye yina ya tibi nti wanka se wo ho so hu se no kre pa NDC amayeku ne betumi aboa man MPP ni bi pepe bi admai omo aka asem na no ma san dia hantan no mo de na ama eniema atumi agiego anti de eteno no na enda so bibia to be konkai emom weekend focus nti ebekoye chi na yakofa minority omo press conference and some omo kan efe no ora Ofori Atta declare wanted no ho biom minority chief whip minority chief whip no so den sama okugina no dompre okokan na NIB akase oye wanted no mo men kotie sansem ne bimra na yen delve into it yen timra
Mr. Ken Ofori Atta, in what can only be described as a state-sanctioned act of lawlessness. These armed officers, despite repeated demands from Mr. Ofori Atta's on-site security team for a warrant, forcibly broke into the house, ransacked the premises, searched every corner, and upon finding nothing, left. As a matter of fact, the government was fully aware that Mr. Ofori Atta was out of the country seeking medical attention, having informed both the former and current chief of staff about his whereabouts. Yet, they proceeded with this reckless display of power, exposing their deep-seated desire to harass and humiliate political opponents under the guise of security operations. Video footage from Mr. Ofori Atta's residence shows one Richard Japa, a known NDC activist, recently tried in the ambulance purchase scandal, leading the raid conducted without a warrant or in accordance with the law. The reckless abuse of power executed under full military backing signal a disturbing shift towards authoritarian governance, where brute force is now replacing the process and replacing due process, and political witch hunts are being disguised as security operations. It is nothing short of a state-orchestrated assault on individual freedoms and an alarming escalation in the abuse of powers. Similarly, on Monday, 3rd February 2025, the residence of Lord Comey, former Director of Operations at the Jubilee House, was raided with his vehicle unlawfully seized. Former Minister of Defense, Honorable Dominic Nitiwo, was also targeted as security operatives chased him down and forcibly took possession of his vehicle while it was at a workshop. For such incidents to occur under a government that once vehemently condemned the use of military force in political matters or for political ends is not only the height of hypocrisy, but also a shameful betrayal of democratic principles. The very leaders who cried foul over what they claim to be military intimidation while in opposition are now wielding state power in an even more reckless and tyrannical manner. This is not governance. It is a hostile takeover, reminiscent of regimes that thrive on suppression, intimidation, and fear. Today, February 12, yesterday, February 12, 2025, the OSP, subsequent to the raid, has also, without recourse to law and due process, announced at a press conference that he considers Mr. Ofori Atta a suspect and a fugitive. This is shocking. When no charges have even been proffered against the former finance minister. Another matter that demands the attention of the public is the glaring bias and selective justice being exhibited by state security agencies in the administration of their duties. The National Intelligence Bureau, the NIB, on Monday, 10th February 2025, wasted no time in summoning the Minority Chief Whip, Honorable Frank Anodombre, for questioning over comments he made concerning the disputed Ablekuma North parliamentary elections results. His words urging MPP supporters to protect their own were swiftly deemed insightful and required interrogation at the highest level of the security apparatus. Yet, when Mustafa Bande, the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC and Deputy Director of Operations in the Presidency, openly declared on live television on Friday, 7th February 2025, that the NDC would sacrifice the minority leader, Honorable Alexander Afenyo-Markin, the NIB found no cause for alarm and did not summon him for questioning. Neither did they demand an explanation for such utterances. The NIB did not also find it necessary to investigate what was an explicit and direct threat to the life of Honorable Afenyo-Markin and a deliberate attempt to incite violence against him. Mr. Gbande's comments were dangerous and a criminal incitement to harm the minority leader. It was a direct attack on his safety and an assault on the very principles of democracy and the rule of law. This glaring double standard exposes the dangerous path this country is heading down. One where justice is no longer blind but selectively wielded against political opponents. If the NIB is truly committed to upholding law and order, it must explain why the minority chief whip was swiftly summoned for interrogation over his comments, while the Deputy Director of Operations at the Presidency, who openly threatened the minority leader's life, was allowed to walk free without consequences. This double standard raises serious concerns about the selective application of justice and the use of state institutions to police certain political figures while others are allowed to act with impunity. If public remarks are to be scrutinized, all individuals, regardless of political affiliation, must be held to the same standard. The silence over Gbande's threats, while Honorable Arnold Dampre is subjected to interrogation, suggests a politicization of security agencies and a dangerous precedent where loyalty rather than the rule of law dictates accountability. We will not remain silent while political persecution takes root in Ghana. This country belongs to all of us, and no administration has the right to weaponize state institutions against its political opponents. We demand an immediate, transparent, and independent investigation into these politically motivated attacks and insist that those responsible be held accountable. The harassment of former government officials must cease immediately, and due process must be followed in all legal matters. The use of security forces for political vendettas points to a dangerous descent into lawlessness, one where due process is cast aside and state institutions are weaponized or harass or silence perceived opponents. This undermines our institutions and erodes public confidence in governance. As such, the government must demonstrate political maturity and tolerance by fostering an environment where opposition voices are respected rather than suppressed through intimidation and coercion. No democracies can survive when its institutions become weapons for political vengeance. No citizen, no matter how highly placed, is safe when due process is replaced with brute force. If we allow this lawlessness to continue unchecked, tomorrow it will not just be politicians who are targeted, but ordinary Ghanaians who hold dissenting views. We call on all democracy-loving Ghanaians, civil society organizations, religious groups, traditional authorities, and the international community to take note of these dangerous developments and to stand with us in rejecting this wave of political persecutions. Sorry. If unchecked, these abuses will set Ghana back decades and erode the democratic gains we have made. The government must be reminded that power is transient and history will not judge kindly those who turn state institutions into instruments of oppression. The path this government is taking is a dangerous one. We will not allow tyranny to replace democracy, and we will continue to champion justice, fairness, and democratic governance. We in the minority demand that if the government is claiming no knowledge of such actions, then we demand from the government that all those responsible for these actions must be arrested and prosecuted immediately. God bless our homeland, Ghana. Thank you.
The Honorable Patricia Apia J. and I attend in Kano or deputy minority leader on Odin Sem 2. And some of the 2 joining now, Fano Ura Franca Nodon Pro minority chief whip. Nensembi Okojina Ablekuma North. Na Okan say, who say, Unia NPP Nini NDC ne Kwa, can Hono Mumbo NDC Nino. And then I make her say, NIB, a National Investigation Bureau, Sana, Sisiani, a kind of first BNI, or Matun Safra, no say, and some be a whole kind of big yes or baba, no begin, no Matutunano, and none 7 minority nature say, or Montiasia, being a whole bin or mutu sin or home, but what's answer me now, would you one in Tiasia be in Manzano Rack and Oforiata, or then home Akanra. Besi yenhu no reckon of reata the end of the day aton safre na nipo de letter or the fan the doctor so the buy say on to men time or beba de or say declare wanted nti kasa bebre ba honorable Patricia Piaje or your deputy minority leader okay yina say reckon oken of reata nsemo o mo kan yina no akoye bibia akoye se enim guase se ompese se bi omugum penifo na bi enim ase titi penifo a omo NPP abem but enye enim guase oraka no furiata ye de man no ma no so no no hwe yesi kasem na eniema akoso deals ahro akoso SML asemi ene esemebre akoso a ye hia so se ebisa na no asem say se also wo yare wo de for doctors so time obeba de indefinitely nim time a wopese wo bo man Ghana mbe yi wano intimate bia no OSP and some of the 2 dwa no so ka say declare wanted no dika we are Ghana ni or say what ya say minority some mo kan nti ase bia nim minim say honorable Patricia PJ na nkasa no ma ekoso no ono ankasa na press conference bi no mo ye ne keke ba na dream no oso hu say enya right. And you're right. Reckon of reactor or so ba. Enti ye declare wanted that we nya dia or so be over say oh na say na no cre 7 na waka no. No cre 7 na waka no. Enti eno de OSP aka say ye declare wanted that ye hian baby obe hu ne bia waka na minority ye maame apieje ne nsem o kan de me ne nya adwene. Then they adu say ye Frank anodon pra some kind no enye basabasa ye no pese odeba Frank anodon pra enye basabasa ye ukojin baby ka say woni MPP ni NDC ni kwa kan ho no mboro no as a member of parliament na ya to zafra wa obey sa press conference ye asema ma make say over 12 minutes bibi o ma mon kan kire me and some o kasa in 10 na bibi o ma mo de mon kan kire me bibi eni na asema o kan emu because asemo kanina no mo bo defense kan wonsem na minority yantiase ni nyina ya de kopo enyanam because kofo na mo ayi no mo aka asemo mo kan ye no ana adwumadi omudi na moa ti eto nse from a esefeta so say eto nse from na minority mo de bibia na mo di akire obi opese ode basabasa ye ba odi chaos ba waka bibisa na invite na mo kasa afa ho why na obeka say asem o kan na ya asem a di nka bomba odi basa na de ba Ghana na ye pasomdwe o Ghana no e ya asomdwe man nti wo bepese odi basa ye ba no anya de o say so ora franka no dem pre ama ye hu ni nipa ban oye wa ma ye hu ni so ono no sana ono no krom pasomdwe because ye hwe vet na abreso mo ye vet hwe niema bi oye hwe o kan hu bi na wa match so e di si table so omo ana ma table no so no mato na microphones ana mo nkai sa video no enye ora no don pre nti nipa bi sa no wa demonstrate ama ye hu se onye obi a ode asomdwe ba wa ma ye hu ni nipa ban oye nti se wu tie me wo hwe me a ensam tenti a minority kan na ora ken Ofori Atta wadi esika na enye SIC na efa no eye state e bia omo ensure oba na ogema ono ankasa na adwuma enterprise insurance owi a ye bosi a ye kwagi na omo ti twobo pa na oti wom enti ora ken Ofori Atta de oda yare mpa so kra na ye ne beba oda yare mpa so kra na we feel so say ye ne ba because idea enye say so o man hi ska sika bi akwese baabi bia o say yetumi nya yen say tumi ka na ye hu meko enti de ete no beto so mienu a me pese no so ye hwe week in focus ye hwe Dr. Dominic Anyeni no so den sem to dwa na mo say on His Excellency John Dramani Mahama a clearing agent na e wo cases bi o I see ya ye gusu a ye di ho asem a why so oba na obeka so sa cases ye twamtin ton time be na kre state ni interest bi a was ansem no asem and evidence any witness beba ye ni evidence we di we beba nsem be bro common example ya large agongo ni Europe ni mo nsensem ina enya de o say so nti nsem bi o we waste time ejimre ebenya say twam na wabechem say enya His Excellency John Dramani Mahama no o catch and say lawyer ni penin when we attorney general and justice nti yentwam so no ankasa so a lawyer ni mapa onimede to tena ho no hu say we am bo aman yenyi yimfi ho because asem na evidence bi eni ho abanda de twam ko o sheda no person fasu no di gumpenifo eni mase nti owura say do agongo bank a friend Heritage Bank enam se sa de nti wo se nasem munti o nasem wo court nti igu ne bank we nyina kasa ho chance ni bi ni a wo be kasa ntesa yenko ne nkoti Dr. Dominic Anyeni no so ne nsem odo tu dwa efa no kwanti a ema cases bi o ho nyia na ha oman no otwetwe mu.
I consulted widely and reviewed the files diligently before coming to a decision on each of the cases. You would note that in some cases, such as the Senate case and the banking cases, I withdrew the charges against some of the accused persons, while others are still under consideration. I am keenly aware of the need to balance the public interest, in this case, against the interests and rights of the accused persons. Also, as Attorney General, I take absolute responsibility for all the decisions so far taken. I am not under any instructions or pressure to discontinue any case or to bring charges against anyone. Those who are in a haste to tag His Excellency the President of the Republic as a clearing agent should hasten slowly, because he is not responsible for prosecutions and has not directed me to drop any case. Moreover, with the exception of one charge of bribery in the Opuni matter, in respect of which, no evidence was laid, none of the persons affected by my decision so far has looted state resources. There is a gulf of difference between the offense of causing financial loss to the state or misapplication of state funds and the offenses of bribery, corruption, or that of using public office for private gain. In the latter offenses, the individual charge can be accurately labeled as looters. In the former, it will be thoroughly unfair and actually defamatory to label the accused persons who have, as people who have looted state resources. In criminal law, an accused is entitled to know with precision the crime that he has committed and the burden that he must discharge in order to prove his innocence. This is basic criminal jurisprudence, and the charges in this case, and the other in terms of the cases affecting the other accused persons, fail to meet the standard of precision required to put an accused person on notice of his criminal liability. Ladies and gentlemen, the third reason why I dropped the charges in some of the cases was that the evidence adduced so far fell significantly short of what was required to convict the accused persons, and yet the state pressed on with the prosecutions. I consider that to be a total waste of state resources. As noted by Puamang JSC in Afoko and Attorney General, that is the case that I cited earlier, the prosecution may enter a nolle prosequi in situations where, upon review of the proceedings, the Attorney General detects fatal flaws in the case which may lead to the acquittal of an accused person. In other words, a nolle prosequi may be entered to avoid possible verdict against the prosecution. My review of some of the cases certainly revealed fatal flaws in the case of the prosecution. A few examples are in order. In any decent constitutional democracy, the disgraceful and unethical conduct of the former Attorney General, the Honorable Godfred Yeboah Dame, in interfering with a key witness who also happened to be the second accused in the Atta Forsen case, should have resulted automatically in a mistrial. But let us leave that for another day. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, the second reason why I dropped the charges in some of the cases, as I stated above, is that the charges were defective and upon careful scrutiny were filed against the promptings of plain common sense. Ladies and gentlemen of the media and fellow citizens, my decision to terminate the criminal trial was animated in the main by three factors. The first was that for ethical and professional reasons, I could not in good conscience continue to prosecute some of the cases. The second was that for some of the cases, my own review and analysis of the charges showed clearly that the charges were defective, and some were filed against the promptings of plain common sense. The third was that in some of the cases, the evidence led so far that showed that there was a reasonable doubt as to the guilt of the accused persons, and no prosecutor should continue to pursue a case in the face of overwhelming doubt regarding the guilt of the accused person. Also, it is important to highlight the fact that in most of the cases in which I have terminated proceedings, the conduct of some of the individual judges left so much to be desired. I will deal with the issue of judicial conduct in my concluding remarks. Suffice it to say that it raises a specter of lack of fairness in criminal proceedings where a judge is seen to be overly hostile to the accused and unreservedly differential to the prosecution. Now to my first substantive reason for dropping charges in some of the cases. As I have noted above, for purely ethical and professional reasons, I could not in good conscience continue to exercise my prosecutorial authority under Article 88, Clause 3 in some of the cases. These cases were the Republic versus Kesiel Atta Forsen and another, and the Republic versus Ofosu Ampofo and another. In the case of Republic versus Stephen Opuni and another, the entire case was built around the fact that an untested liquid fertilizer, Litovit, was purchased by Cocoa Board, and further that the fertilizer was not efficacious. In the event, according to the case of the state, all sums of money spent by Cocoa Board to purchase this fertilizer caused financial loss to the state. Rather strangely, not a single farmer was called by the prosecution to prove this fact. On the contrary, officials at Cocoa Board who were invited by the investigators gave statements to the effect that Litovit fertilizer was one of the most effective fertilizers purchased by Cocoa Board, and that the farmers preferred Litovit fertilizer to the granular fertilizer. More importantly, in the course of the investigations, Cocoa Board took statements from two farmers. Whilst one stated that he did not see any significant change on his farm, the second farmer stated that after using Litovit fertilizer, he saw a significant increase in yield, and that Litovit fertilizer is a very good fertilizer. Again, in the course of the trial, the defense tendered an official report from Cocoa Board which covered field visit by Cocoa Board officials. The report, which was tendered, was to the effect that Litovit fertilizer is a very good fertilizer and that farmers actually prefer it to other fertilizers and was the fertilizer of choice in areas in which Litovit fertilizer was supplied. This is clear evidence that contrary to the case of the prosecution, the use of Litovit fertilizer rather increased the yield. The farmers who used Litovit fertilizer, including the then national best farmer, in their evidence testified that Litovit fertilizer increased, the use of Litovit fertilizer increased their yield, and that it was a good fertilizer. During the course of their investigations, the investigators had two reports from Ghana Standards Authority on Litovit fertilizer. The first report, which was later confirmed to have been done, and listen to this carefully, members of the press, to have been done at the Cosmetics Department of GSA, the department which does not have the mandate to test Litovit fertilizer, okay, indicated that the sample of Litovit fertilizer submitted for testing did not have any fertilizer ingredient in it. This finding was challenged by the accused persons and the investigators, together with representatives of Cocoa Board and the suppliers of Litovit fertilizer, took a second sample from the warehouse of Cocoa Board. This sample, which was again tested by the same Ghana Standards Authority, but this time by the proper department with the mandate to test fertilizers, concluded that the samples taken was fertilizer in the first place and that the fertilizer was efficacious. Furthermore, it is interesting to note that in this case, the complainant, that is Dr. Edu Ampoma, who was the third prosecuting witness, PW3, lied under oath to implicate the accused persons, for which reason a perjury application was filed by Dr. Stephen Opuni against him. The then trial judge, Justice Hoyenuga, for reasons which are totally unacceptable, did not hear the application, but rather stated that hearing the application will prejudice the hearing of the main case. He therefore adjourned the application until the conclusion of the case. This is most unacceptable because in a criminal trial, it is important to hold the scale of justice evenly, and any doubt raised must inure to the benefit of the accused persons. I took the decision to withdraw the charges against Mr. Johnson Pundit Asiama for a simple reason that in the course of my review of the cases, my attention was drawn to an internal memo prepared by the Prosecutions Division of our department for the attention of the former Attorney General, the Honorable Godfrey Diebo Adame, which recommended that the charges against him be dropped. This is very significant. This is an internal memo prepared by professional prosecutors advising the Attorney General that the charges against our current Bank of Ghana, the Governor of the Bank of Ghana, be dropped. Note that Mr. Johnson Pundit Asiama was charged with contravention of the Banking Act for granting a facility of 300 million cedis to Universal Merchant Bank and for causing financial loss to the state in the sum of 150 million Ghana cedis. The internal memo, which I just cited earlier, concluded as follows. This is very instructive. It says, a study of the facts of the case indicates that the initial facility of 300 million has been recovered. Leaving 150 million outstanding. This office has confirmed from the Bank of Ghana, that is, the Attorney General's office has confirmed from the Bank of Ghana through Mr. Alexander Tarr, that is PW2, prosecution witness 2, that the interest from the outstanding amount is presently being serviced by UMB Bank. Mr. Tarr also indicated that UMB has an amount of 150 million locked up with CBG, that is Consolidated Bank Ghana. It is expected that when the said sum is released to UMB, the loan amount for which A3, that is Johnson Pundit Asiama, was charged with causing financial loss to the state will be repaid to the Bank of Ghana. This therefore may render the charges proffered against A3, that is Johnson Asiama, Johnson Asiama, moot, leading to his discharge. So the professional opinion of the prosecution division was very, very clear that the charges against the current governor of the Bank of Ghana are unsustainable. In other words, factually, and then in terms of the evidence available, he could not be convicted of the offenses charged. Obviously, the former Attorney General failed to act on these recommendations which were made to him by the prosecution division. If he disagreed with the recommendations, I am unable to say, but I agree with them. Based upon these recommendations, I dropped the charges against Johnson Pundit Asiama in both the Unibank and UT Bank cases. In coming to this decision, I am fortified by the rule contained in Rule 40, Sub-Rule 2, Clause A of the Legal Profession, Professional Conduct and Etiquette Rules 2020, that is LI 2423, which provides that in a criminal case, a prosecutor shall refrain from prosecuting a charge that the prosecutor knows is not supported by the facts. But note that I have not yet dropped the charges against the remaining accused persons because I am currently in discussions with the receivers in order to understand the financial implications of any decision I may take in the future. In the case of Republic versus Collins Dowda and others, for instance, the first accused was charged with misapplying public funds to the tune of 200 million United States of American dollars. In laying the charges, the prosecution failed and or neglected to take account of the basic fact that it was part of that 200 million US dollars that was used to construct the houses at Sagleme.
Replies.